Hello kids, it's me again, back with another video, my highly anticipated by no one except for myself screenwriting update. So it's been about, not quite a year, because I made that video last October and it's only August, so it's been almost-ish a year since my last screenwriting video where I talked about writing my very first feature-length screenplay, and I've been very busy since then, and some stuff has happened. Nothing super big, otherwise this would have a more exciting title and thumbnail. But some stuff has happened since then, so I thought I would fill you guys in on what I've been doing as a writer. Yeah, like I said, a lot has happened, and you can likely tell by the length of this video. Get a snack, get you some sodies, get real comfy, because I got a lot to talk about. Since I have written my first screenplay last October, I didn't touch it for a while, and over time my thoughts on it kind of, I guess, changed or evolved. At first I thought, you know, great, wrote my first screenplay, very proud of myself, and then it sat with me for a while and I thought, man, this is a flop. I don't know why I thought that. It's just, I guess the more I thought about the plot, it just felt trite to me, I guess. But eventually, you know, I let it sit for a few months, you know, which is a good writing strategy. If you write something, you just let it sit for a while before you go back and read it and then make revisions to it. I think a couple of months. And I reread it and I thought, wow, this is actually pretty great. I like it a lot. I like the story, I like the way it flows, and I've come to like it for what it is, which is my first screenplay. And I still think it is really good as a script, good enough to be made, okay, don't get it twisted, but you know, I had to think about it for a while. And I will be doing those revisions. It's still in the first draft phase. I did do some like minor grammar and spelling stuff just to make sure I didn't, you know, accidentally put a character's name in the wrong place. But my proper first revisions on that will happen at some point, I don't know, probably do it in October. That'll be nice. Let it sit for a year, come back to it. Second year, second draft. Like I said, I think around the end of that video, I wanted to get started on my second screenplay. And almost immediately after I finished my first one, I'm talking like 5 days after I finished it, I actually started writing the treatment/beat sheet, which I'll get into that later, for my second screenplay. So this one, it took me a bit longer than the first one to finish. It took me 6 months instead of 2. Why? I'm honestly not entirely sure. I guess, you know, just work stuff, got busy, sometimes was feeling uninspired. Like I said the first time, if I don't have the think juice, I'm not gonna force myself to write, and I found myself lacking the think juice apparently a lot, so it took me a while to actually get the first draft finished. The second one, like I also said in my last video, it's based on a story that I had started developing when I was a freshman in college, when I was still doing creative writing as a major. So around 2017 or 2018, I want to say 2018, so like 4 years ago, which, wow, it's been a while since I've been in college, I guess. Freshman year of college. At first it was going to be a book because I fancied myself a novelist, realized I don't have the temperament for that, but I kept the idea around for a while. I had, you know, thought about ways that I could maybe bring it to the screen, but I never actually tried to do that until last October. So I wrote the treatment, and then after I did that, I just started writing the script. So we're gonna get to the title and the log line. But first, I have to bring it up. So the title of it at first was Rumors. And that was like a working title. As I started actually working on the script itself, I realized that that's not gonna work because there was supposed to be a rumor at the center of the plot, but eventually I took that out of the story completely, and so now the title doesn't make sense. So I changed it to Meredith, which is the name of one of the main characters, not the main character, but one of the main characters. And the logline is, when her best friend is kidnapped by their history teacher, a teenage girl takes matters into her own hands to find her after becoming disappointed by the ineffectual adults in her life, enlisting the help of other young women along the way. Now, I'm not the best logline writer. That obviously needs some work. I'm going to work on that as I work on subsequent drafts of it, but that is what we have right now. The story details changed a lot since when I first like thunk up the little thought in my head when I was a freshman in college. I mean, when I first thought of it, the main character was a completely different person who's now a side character. I mean, the main details are still all there, But I think I still have some like notes in my phone of like story ideas from back in that time, since I never delete anything because I'm a data hoarder for whatever reason. But over time, I honestly like the way the idea has evolved and changed, because as it started out at first, it didn't really have like legs. It wasn't like going anywhere plot-wise. And now that I've actually like figured it out and actually plotted it out properly, I really like the way the story has gone. I'm kind of surprised that I was able to keep all those story ideas just like in my head for so long, because I had a general idea when I first made the idea for the story when I was a freshman. I had a general idea of how I wanted that to go, like the main big story beats. But I don't even think I wrote them down anywhere, and I just kind of tried to remember them. And somehow that worked out because they all made it to the script. And like I said in my first video, you never stop rewriting. So things can really change a lot by the time something will hopefully make it to the screen. Even though it is the way it is now, I still acknowledge that the story could change a bit in subsequent drafts. And I already have some like things that I need to work on now that I know of that don't change the story in a major way, but it does change things up a little bit. That's my second screenplay that I worked on. Finished that in March. I want to say March 18th was the day that I finished it. And well, it's been a while since March. I've been trying to work on new ideas since, those are my knuckles by the way. I was trying to work on new ideas like ever since March, but they just weren't working. But also, something that happened after I finished that script is that, you know, it was a story that I was working on, not actively working on, but, you know, I was thinking about it, I was kind of mentally developing it for like a really long time, like several years. And once I actually finished it and it was a completed product in my hands, I could look at it, it was real now. I just didn't have, I don't know, I couldn't think of any more ideas for like a while after that. And it honestly took me, I think I took like longer than I would have liked off of writing and developing new stories, just kind of, you know, letting my previous work just like sit, just letting myself marinate over it before I can just like start on a new idea. And like I said, it did take me a while to actually think of new ideas for my third screenplay that I wanted to write. And I'm not gonna lie, a lot of those ideas, they were flops. They did not make it past the idea stage. I had a lot of them, and honestly, I didn't even write all of them down because all of them were not worth writing down, but I did write a few of them down, and I did try to develop them, and once I tried to develop them is when I realized they were flops. I'm gonna go through briefly how I kind of develop ideas from the idea stage into hopefully the script stage. First, I usually just start off, you know, with an idea. Something pops into my mind. It might be a scene or some dialogue or a collection of scenes that I think might be cool. And so I keep those in my head, and then eventually I just keep thinking about them, and I think, okay, I really want to see this like in a script. I'm gonna try to write it. So what I do first is I write a log line. And a log line is what I just read to you earlier. It's basically a very brief, usually one sentence, can be two sentences, of the plot of the script. So there's a formula that you can use, and there's a formula that I use to make log lines. I gotta look it up now because I'm gonna forget. So I got this formula from Studio Binder, by the way, so you can find it on their website, and they have a lot of really good, whoop, almost dropped my phone. They have a lot of really good resources for screenwriting, from the very beginning, like how do I even format this, to pre-production stuff. So check that out if you want, not sponsored. So, okay, the logline formula that this is showing is inciting incident, right? So when her best friend is kidnapped by their teacher, that's the inciting incident. Protagonist, a teenage girl, that is the protagonist of my script. Action, so let's see, takes matters into her own hands to find her, okay? And then antagonist, which, okay, kidnapped by their history teacher, that's kind of in the beginning. And then what this doesn't have is stakes. There's a way to insert the stakes into the logline. There's also, there's some more there. You don't have to stick to this formula, but there's another one that Studio Binder gives that actually does have the stakes in there, and they have a video for it, but that is the general idea for how to craft a logline. After I make the logline, I'm like, okay, this is good. This generally describes how I want to lay out this story. I do something called a 5-act structure. Not 5 acts. And I wrote 5 acts there too. That's so wrong. The 5-step structure. So this is something that I learned in screenwriting classes in college, and it is something that you can use to very generally, very basically lay out the story. So the 5 steps are the balance, the unbalance, the quest, the climax, and the new balance. And that basically, you know, the balance, the status quo at the beginning of the script, the unbalance, which is the inciting incident, what, you know, unbalances things in the script, the quest, which I guess can be described as trying to return to that status quo, the climax, which is, I mean, it's the climax, I don't think that needs explaining, and then the new balance, which is the new status quo that is achieved at the end of the script that is different from the balance, because things have changed from the balance to, this isn't a screenwriting class, I don't know why I'm explaining it like this, but that's what I do. That's the 5-step structure that really helps me to further flesh out the story. And usually, sometimes, in the flop ideas that I've had, that is where the story really falls apart. Because I have the unbalance, or no, I have the balance, and then I have the unbalance, but then I get to the quest, and then things just start not making sense, and that's where things fall apart for me for some of my flop ideas. A couple of ideas that I've had have made it past the quest not making sense and have had a coherent 5-step structure, and so after that I move on to the treatment, which I mentioned earlier. So what a treatment is, honestly I don't know. I can't like define it to you, but what a treatment is for me is I take the main steps, not the main steps, the main plot points of a script and I lay them out. And I think this might be more accurately referred to as a beat sheet. So basically all the main story beats of the script, I type all of those out, beginning to end, everything major that happens. I don't go into like dialogue. Sometimes I will do dialogue if I have like a really good line in my head, but it may not stay the same when I get to actually writing it. But it's very basic. There are some examples of like famous script treatments that you can read online. They're usually, honestly, they are usually longer than the ones that I write. Mine are, and I went and looked because when I finished the latest treatment that I wrote, I was wondering if it was like too short. But the shortest one that I wrote was about 900 words and the longest one that I wrote was about 2,000 words. So the shortest one, that would have been my first script. And basically I just kind of did 3 paragraphs for 3 acts of the script. And the longest one that I wrote was actually my second screenplay, so Meredith. That one was longer because I actually had more story beats actually like thought out that I had to write out. And then sometimes I'll have some ideas that I thought weren't flops that made it past the 5-step structure, and then I get to the treatment and then it really flops. And that's when things also fall apart sometimes for ideas. Very rarely, but usually my flop ideas don't make it past the 5 steps. And then, like I said, I thought of a lot of ideas. Some of them didn't make it to even being written out. And only 2 ideas that I've had have actually made it to the treatment stage. I did have one major flop idea that made it out of the treatment phase and into the script writing phase. Basically, I wrote out the treatment, right? The treatment was fine. Honestly, I still think it's fine. It may need some help in some places, but I still thought that it was like fine and that it would be fine going into the script writing phase. But when I actually started writing the script, I wanted to do it in a way that had a lot of narration. And then as I kept writing it, I was like, okay, this isn't working out. I got about 20 pages in before I realized, okay, I'm gonna have to reassess how I approach this story. And so that is on the back burner for now. I still like the treatment. I'm not gonna toss it to the wind completely. I still think it's a good treatment. I just need to rethink how I wanna like actually execute the story itself. And I guess that tells you how really different a treatment / beat sheet is from an actual script itself. After that, I was a little, you know, I was a little down in the dumps because I was having trouble coming up with ideas and I was very eager to start writing something again, you know. I didn't have a new idea for like a while, up until like recently. So let's see, like 2 weeks ago. So it's August now. So this was July 28th when I actually finally got a new, hopefully good idea that won't flop this time. Again, going through the cycle of ideas, had another one that did make it out of the 5-step structure, but the treatment is where it fell apart. But then one day I was thinking and I was like, okay, I thought of a concept and I thought of an ending scene that I really want to see. I will give away this one because I need some context, right? So I don't know why, I don't even remember like seeing a movie where this happens, but I really want to see a movie that's like a thriller where like maybe not the final shot of the movie, but one of the final shots of the movie is like like a really big nice house just on fire. So I basically wrote a script around that, which it sounds crazy because it is, but it actually does work out. You know, it does work out, and it is a thriller. So it's a thriller, and at the end of the movie, a house is on fire, and that's all you need to know. So I wrote a treatment around that, and the treatment, it went well. And now I'm in the script phase. I'm 21 pages in, and there's no slowing down except for the fact that, you know, work is busy sometimes, and don't tell my employers, but at work is where I actually do the majority of my writing these days when I have like nothing else to do. But surprise, I've had things to do, so haven't been doing a whole lot of writing. It's a little sporadic right now, but that was only like a couple of weeks ago. I'm already 21 pages through the first act already. So things are going pretty well for my hopefully third screenplay. Some other things that I've been up to in the interim between my first screenplay and now. I don't know why I had to think about that. My first screenplay and now. These next two things, I'm gonna say them in order, but they're very much out of order for the procedure of how you might want to proceed as a burgeoning young screenwriter. So don't do what I did. What I'm about to say, don't do what I did. Just don't. It's very silly. I realize that now. I can be silly sometimes. I can acknowledge that, okay? My immediate next step after finishing Meredith was submitting it to festivals, which again, don't do that. Literally have someone look at it. Literally have anyone look at it. Do revisions. Don't submit a first draft to a screenplay competition. That's so silly. Like, hello, stupid. I was very eager and anxious to start, getting on the road, getting in those contests and competitions and fellowships and getting my name out there, and that's really what I wanted to do next. So that's very, very foolishly what I did. So I submitted Meredith to 5 different screenplay competitions. So there was the Sidewalk Film Festival from Birmingham, the Nashville Film Festival, which is in Nashville, if you couldn't guess, the Southern States Indie Fan Film Fest, which hasn't been going for very long, I think only like 5 years. I just saw it on Film Freeway, and I was trying to submit to things that were more local to me than just like random ones out in random places. And that one, the festival itself is held in Biloxi, and if you don't know where that is, I also don't know where it is. I think it's by the coast in Mississippi, but it's in Mississippi. It's Biloxi. It's where all the casinos are, allegedly. So that should give you an idea, maybe, I don't know. And then there is the Atlanta Film Festival Screenwriting Competition, which is in Atlanta, again, if you couldn't guess. And then there was the big daddy of them all, the Nickel Fellowship. And if you are familiar with the Nickel Fellowship and you know what day it is, which it's August 10th today, then you know notifications have come out. And I did not make it into the Nickel Fellowship. However, upon seeing the email, literally today by the way, notifications went out on the 8th. Gmail put it in the promotions instead of my main inbox for some reason, I guess because they're praying for my downfall, and I didn't see it until today. So in the email, my rejection email that I saw today, there were 5,500 submissions this year. I want to say last year there were only 2,000. Like, that's so bonkers, so the chances of me like actually placing in such a very ginormous fellowship such as that one were already kind of slim just based on numbers alone. So I'm not super torn up about it. Obviously it does hurt a little bit to get rejection, but I know it's not the end of the world, and I know that I slayed, so it kind of doesn't matter. Like I said, submitted to 5. I've heard back from 3, the Nickel Fellowship being one of them. Nashville, did not get into it. That was, I want to say June or July is when notifications went out for that. 'Twas a no. Sidewalk Film Festival, that one also a no. A bit more recent. The notifications went out before August 8th, but also August 8th. But this Monday, which was the 8th, I actually got my feedback, my script feedback on Meredith for that, which I thought was interesting. And then Nickel, of course, that was also on the 8th. Only saw it today, and feedback for that comes September 1st, which is literally the day before my birthday, so that'll be interesting to see as well. So the remaining two, the Indie Fan Film Fest, Southern States Indie Fan Film Fest. It's a really long name, not the best name. And let's see, Atlanta, because I submitted to that, I think as soon as it opened up. Those will be end of 2022 to the beginning of 2023. So it'll be a while before I hear from those. Something about submitting to festivals is that it costs money to do so. And don't tell my parents I did this, even though I think I may have already told them I did it anyway, but you know, it's gonna be a little shocking, but I added it up and I spent a grand total of $309 submitting to festivals. So, film festivals can be anywhere from free sometimes to $25 at minimum and maybe $75 at maximum. And I should point out that the Nickel Fellowship was the most expensive one that I submitted to. That one was $109. I think okay, so the reason I started submitting to festivals so quickly after finishing Meredith, which again, not advised, the deadline was actually coming up. The final deadline was coming up, so I was already late. And the later you get to a deadline, the more something costs. I don't know the reason why. It does seem reasonable to me, but I still don't know the reason why for that. But yeah, the final deadline was coming up for the Nickel Fellowship, and I didn't want to miss it, so obviously I had to submit. That is actually the reason why I submitted to so many festivals. I had FOMO. What can you say? FOMO gets all of us. It got me, and I made the silly mistake of submitting to festivals before a second pair of eyes ever looked at my script, so. Again, don't do what I did. Do what I say, not what I do, okay? Of course, I didn't just drop $309 at once. That would have been very silly of me. But it is kind of a lot of money, and it is unfeasible for a lot of people. So I can understand why some people might think festivals are a little bit a scam-theanta, but you have to pay, well, you would think you have to pay people who read the scripts for these festivals, but actually some festivals don't, and they're kind of, they get in hot water for it sometimes. But yeah, I'm assuming that's where the money goes, towards administrative things, funding the festivals, because oftentimes they're run by nonprofit organizations anyway. So I can get why they cost money. I can get why people don't like that they cost money, and I would not be able to submit to festivals if I did not have any income. So I can understand why that would be frustrating, why some people might think it's a scam. So are festivals worth it? I don't know. I can't tell you that. What is supposed to happen with these festivals? A lot of the times they do have a cash prize. The Nickel Fellowship is $35,000 over like 4 quarters. So like $7,500 over like, I don't know what the actual pay scale is, but you get $35,000, and all you have to do is write 1 screenplay in a year, which I think those requirements are super easy, especially for someone like me who writes a lot anyway. So I feel like, you know, it's a good amount of money. But not only that, is even if you don't win the cash prizes in some of these festivals, is that industry people, for the bigger ones like Nickel and Austin, perhaps Atlanta, maybe Nashville, I don't know, the bigger ones. I don't even know if Nashville is that big, honestly, but the larger festivals, you have industry people, so like producers and agents, especially for a lot of unrepresented people. And by unrepresented, I mean people without representation, not like people of color, but also them too. But specifically in this context, I mean people who don't have agents or managers, so unrepresented people. That's very important for them, because then, like I said, even if you don't get in, even if you make it only to the quarterfinals or the finals, but you don't end up winning, you have a chance for industry people to see your script, and perhaps they like it, and perhaps they reach out to you, and perhaps you get representation, and therefore your career moves forward. So it's more than just the cash prize and like getting an award of winning at a festival, you know? You have other things that can happen as well. Moral of the story, I don't know if they're worth it or not. Some people will tell you no, some people will tell you yes. So it was not until after I submitted to all of those festivals and spent $309, probably not including taxes and whatever fees that I paid on Film Freeway, that I actually started seeking feedback. Again, this is not something that you should do. Do not do what I did. It was not smart. So, like I said in my last video, I did not want to resort to strangers reading my work. So I tried to reach out to my friends and people I knew to read it. My mom read it, And she actually texted me during the video, during me recording that video, to tell me that she liked it. And she said that it reminded her of a Lifetime script or of a Lifetime movie. And that may sound shady, but coming from my mom, I'm going to consider it a compliment. And that was for the first script that I wrote. Honestly, it was just kind of hard for me to get feedback from people that I knew. I mean, my mom told me she liked my first script, but she's not someone who knows really anything about screenwriting. So as someone who has really never read a script before, meaning my mom, she doesn't really know what to look for to know like what needs to be improved upon, right? And my mom, by the way, she's not going to lie to me. Just throwing that out there, if she doesn't like something, she will let me know. And she has always let me know throughout my life. So it's not like my mom was just telling me that to make me feel better either. But again, she's not really someone who knows the craft of screenwriting, so she couldn't tell me what wasn't working and what was like needed to be improved on. So I went to film school. I went to film school with people. I still am in contact with some of those people, and I did try to reach out to them to send them my scripts. But the ones that I reached out to and sent my stuff to, they just never replied back. They didn't say anything, which is worse than saying that it was crap, honestly. And yes, that does include Joseph, but he takes forever to read things. I think he is still on page 9 of the first screenplay that I wrote. I've already completed the second one, and I'm 21 pages into my third one. So I've honestly just not even continued to try there. There's no point in that. But I did send it out to a couple other of my classmates and just haven't heard back, so it's fine, you know. On the one hand, I do get it, like we are all the people that I reached out to, we're all like working now, we're all busy, so it might have just crossed their minds. And it is like a, 90-page script, and that can take some time. I mean, for me, it doesn't take very long. I'm not a super fast reader by any means, but it'll take you more than 30 minutes to read it, maybe 45 minutes, more than the shorts that we were writing and reading of each other's when we were back in school. So I suppose I could understand that aspect. But on the other hand, I was really trying to get feedback from people that, number one, I knew, number one, I trusted, or number two, I trusted, and number three, who actually knew about screenwriting and like the mechanics of it and knew what was supposed to be done and wasn't supposed to be done, if that makes sense. And I just didn't get that. So like I said, was not going to resort to strangers. Well, no, I think what I specifically said is I wasn't going to resort to Reddit, and I have not resorted to Reddit because I've been on the r/screenwriting subreddit, and let me tell you, the vibes are off. I don't know why, but for some reason, the people on that subreddit, which range from complete beginners to people who are in the Writers Guild and like actual producers and stuff like that, for some reason they're all like strangely cynical. And on one hand, it is Reddit, and Reddit has an overwhelmingly cynical vibe, which I am starting to dislike more and more. And on the other hand, from the one like actual working screenwriter that I have known who is also unbearably cynical for some reason, it tracks. So I don't know what I expected, but yeah, the vibes are off in that subreddit, and I will not be going there to submit my work. I do lurk there sometimes. So there are other things that you can do if you want to get your screenplay looked at, like professional coverage services, or basically people with experience in the industry. You pay them, they'll read your script, and they'll give you detailed notes. However, those services are usually up to and over $100. And I do know that they can be very valuable, but considering I did just move and all my money gone, I just don't have the coins for it right now. So that's not really in the cards for me at the moment. Maybe somewhere down the line, maybe if I get to like draft 3, and I'm like, okay, this one's for all the marbles, I gotta make sure this is as good as it can be. Maybe then I'll actually pay for coverage. These dogs are so loud. Somebody must be outside. Maybe at that point will I like actually decide to pay for coverage, but there is this website that I learned of far too late. And by far too late, I mean like last week is when I learned of it. And it's called Coverfly. And basically it's sort of like the Blacklist, but free. They do have a paid coverage service on there, but it's not like mandatory to host your work there. And they allegedly have industry people who are also there. Actually, I mean, they do. In order to create like a professional account, you have to like actually list your credentials and get them verified. So if there are industry people on there, they are verified, so that's good. But what I'm specifically talking about is their service, which I think is fairly, I don't know how new it is, but just based on the verbiage they use on the site, it seems to be pretty new, called Coverfly X, which is basically like a peer-to-peer coverage service. And this is good because now I can get actual feedback on my scripts. How it works is that in order to get coverage from other people, you have to spend these things called tokens, which are free, but the way that you get them is by doing coverage on other people's scripts, which honestly for me was like a no-brainer because I did this one internship like last January to like April, which may or may not have been a scam, but we're not gonna talk about it. But I was a creative development intern for a very small, not heard of before production company that does have production credits. But even as of last year, those production credits were from like 2018, but we're not gonna get into that right now. Basically what my job was during that internship was to do coverage for scripts that they had given us. And so I learned how to do coverage there. And I found out that I really like doing it. And honestly, you know, if it is in the cards for me, I would like to have a career in film and TV development. You know, I would like doing something like that. It's just that the path to doing that is not super clear for me. I mean, I did that one internship, but again, may or may not have been a scam. May or may not have been finessed. So, yeah, who knows? So what I had to do in order to get feedback from my script was give feedback on other people's scripts, which again, easy for me. But once I got enough tokens, I put my first and second scripts up there. I got some feedback back, and I got actually a lot of really helpful feedback. Now, the thing about Coverfly X is that these aren't, you don't know who's reading your script. It could be complete newbies to industry professionals who are just doing it for free for some reason, even though they could be charging, which like, I don't know why you would do something like that if you're like an industry pro, but if you just want to provide a service to the community, then by all means, go off, queen or king. So you don't have like, well, you may or may not have professionals looking at your work, but at the very least you have people who know story. Like you wouldn't, I mean, I've read really only one. No, it's been a couple of scripts that I've read, and I can't talk too much about them because you have to sign an NDA because you have to keep things hush-hush, so you can't have people stealing ideas. But I've read a few scripts that were professional and polished and really good, and then I read a few scripts that were clearly written by, not amateurs, but not people who did, I don't know how to say this without being mean, but people who are new to screenwriting. That's really it, that's all I can say. So, you know, you might have those people reading your scripts, or you might have people who know what they're doing. But based on the feedback that I've gotten so far, it really seems like it's people who know what they're doing. So that's good at the very least. And the feedback that I've gotten on my feedback makes it seem that people think that I know what I'm doing. So that's really good. So at least people think I know what I'm talking about when I give them feedback. That's all I can hope for. I really should have found out about the service like way before I even tried to submit to festivals, but I know about it now. And now I can apply the feedback that I've gotten to subsequent drafts of my scripts. So that's good. I have it now at the very least. And maybe one day I can convince Joseph to sit down and read a script of mine, but I wouldn't hold your breath on that, and I won't either. And also about Coverfly, you know, they do incentivize you to like actually do a good job with your coverage. And I personally always just try to do a good job because number one, I want these people to like improve. It doesn't really help me out to hinder other people's advancement, if that makes sense. That's just how I feel anyway. And also because I'm just so like passionate about the art of screenwriting, which sounds really corny and cringy, I just want them to, I don't know. I want to help my fellow screenwriters because I'm really passionate about it. I guess that's the way that I can describe it. So after all of that, what is next for me? Well, obviously more writing. Got a third screenplay in the pipe, so I'm gonna continue to work on that. I mean, there's really nothing stopping me from doing it now, but for some reason, I just don't have the brain space to like work on something creative more than one thing at once, which is why I guess, I don't know. I'm also the kind of person where I can only read one book at once, which I know that sounds weird. I'm not holding two books and reading them, but I can only read one book at a time. I don't know, it's just the way my brain works, okay? That's how it is. So I guess once I'm done with my third script, or when I decide it's a flop, I will start working on revisions for my first and second scripts, get more feedback on them and those revisions, and resubmit to festivals. Probably won't be next year. The FOMO might get me, so I might submit to Nickel again next year, but hopefully it'll be on a script that's gone through a few revisions and story changes to make sense. And then the big goal of mine is to get representation. I'm currently on the hunt for a manager. Now, there's a difference between an agent and a literary manager. I'm not gonna get into right now because it's not that important. For my purposes, I think a manager would be better for my career goals. So if you are a literary manager looking for a new client, you can DM me on Twitter. My DMs are open. I will see them, I will read them, and I might reply to them if it's not asking for feet pics, which is legit happened once. So preferably one based in New York, because New York is where I want to take my life, but beggars can't be choosers, so if you are LA based, I suppose I will take you as well. I've been so insistent about finding representation that I subscribe to IMDb Pro and the other add-on that lets you look up people in the industry. And I've done one query letter, but I think I'm gonna hold off on all of that until I get my material to be strong before I send out more query letters. And also I have to do more research on agencies to actually know which ones are best for me, and etc, etc. There's a lot of work that goes into it. It's gonna be a long road ahead of me. I acknowledge that. It'll probably be a while before I can actually get a manager. I also acknowledge that. But the main point is I'm putting in the work now to get one down the road. What are my goals for myself as it relates to screenwriting? Well, obviously, get representation. Then after that, I would like to sell a script. That would be nice. That would be a nice step to take after I hopefully one day get representation. And then after that, getting a script sold is one thing. Getting it produced, whole other thing. Because you can sell a script and then it could just be sitting there. And if that happens to me, I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna feel a type of way. So I would preferably like to sell my script to someone I know who's going to do something with it. Obviously, you know, there's the option of self-producing, but listen, in my journey through film school, I have learned that I am not a producer. I am a writer, and I am an editor for practical reasons, but producer and director, I am not. Who knows? You know, I was under a lot of stress in that film program, so that may have contributed to my feelings about that. But if one day I try out producing and it ends up working for me, then I could self-produce, I guess. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. How about that? How about that? And then, you know, the ultimate goal for me as a writer is getting membership into the Writers Guild of America. That will really have shown me that I have done something with my life. And then after that, who knows? Anything could happen. So throughout the last, honestly, couple of weeks, I have been feeling really, I guess, impatient is the only way that I can describe it about my whole screenwriting journey. It's like, all right, I've written the scripts now. Come on, let's get the next thing to happen. Let's go. Let's get the show on the road. But I have to sometimes, you know, step back and remind myself that I am young, a very young 22 years old. I know, surprising. And these things, they take time. And I have the rest of my life ahead of me to do all of this. And on the one hand, you know, it's like, Aaron, you gotta be patient, you gotta wait. But on the other hand, it's like, I gotta do it now, I need it now, I need my career to start immediately. And, you know, sometimes I do feel, for some reason, guilty for feeling like that. I don't know where the guilt comes from, but sometimes I do feel, I don't know, I really don't know where the guilt comes from, but I do sometimes feel guilty about feeling so impatient for my career to start. But on the other hand, I think that it's a good thing that I am so hungry for these things to happen, because then that means that I'm actually making the steps to make them happen for myself. So I think it's good that I'm not complacent with my station in life right now. I think it's good that I want more and I'm working towards getting more, because, you know, some people, they wake up with a dream and they never make it happen. And I'm, at the very least, trying to make it happen. I mean, baby steps, but I am trying. So I'm choosing to believe it's a good thing that I'm impatient about my career rather than a bad thing. So I'm making it work for myself. I also have to remind myself, even though I've gone through so much rejection, you know, not making the Nickel Fellowship, I found that out this morning, but I didn't feel bad about it for some reason. I don't know what was happening with my little brain juice, but after I found out that I didn't get farther into the Nickel Fellowship, I was like, well, this just means I gotta go harder. This just means I gotta do more. I have to, you know, really, I have to do it. whatever that means. I felt really emboldened as a screenwriter. I felt like I could do anything. I felt, okay, I wasn't gonna get into this, but maybe next year I'll get into it, or maybe the year after that, you know? I have to remind myself that I am a writer, right? Some people like to be really annoying and say that, oh, you can't call yourself XYZ if you're not doing it professionally for money. And to those people I say, shut up, you're annoying, nobody likes you, okay? I am a writer, and I am good at it, and I will make it work for me, and I will make a career out of it. It may not be tomorrow, it may not be next month, it may not be next year, but it will happen if I have any say on it, and that is on period, sis. And that's all I have to say about my screenwriting update. So, you know, it's been an exciting year for me as a writer, getting a lot done, feeling very good about myself. Will not let anyone break my soul, as the philosopher Beyonce Knowles Carter once said. So I am just looking ahead to greener pastures. I'm very excited about what the future has for me because I know it has good things. Because why? I said so. That's how I know. Because I said so. Follow me on Twitter, read my Medium articles where I write some nonfiction things sometimes, and listen to my podcast. We've been on break for a couple of weeks just because things have been going on and we haven't really had the time to record a podcast, but once we return, obviously you'll know about it because I'll post about it on my community tab and on twitter.com where you should be following me. So if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go write a whole lot.